This is Jeff Young. You all know me, the CIO in residence for the Confer Group, and thank you all so much for being here. Most of you did hear Greg last month talking about the Magic Quadrant and the top players in this area. And today, David Fields, who's the principal and co-founder of Solve 100 back in 1996, is going to talk to you about data literacy. And again, we are recording this for the future, and you will get an email later today with the slides from this presentation. So without going any further, I'm going to get quiet and let Mr. Fields take over. So David, thanks for being here, and look forward to hearing your presentation.
Well, thank you, Jeff, and hello, everybody. I'm glad to meet you all. I am Greg's business partner. So if you came to the last talk comparing Tableau, Power BI, and Qlik, you met Greg. I'm his business partner and have been for quite some time now. I am a former math teacher. So my professional, my college career was as a teacher. I did transition to industry and eventually began a business. Every teacher, as it turns out, has a part-time job. And mine was doing consulting of various kinds. And really have enjoyed that. One of my favorite things about it is how many different organizations I get to work with, and they all have such interesting data. I live in Northwest Arkansas, so I think it's the best corner of Arkansas. There's two kinds of businesses, broadly speaking, that are closely clustered to me, and that's Walmart suppliers and chicken companies. That's Walmart has Walmart has a big presence in my backyard here, and they force all their suppliers to have a presence here too. So we have lots of consumer goods, lots of logistics, and then plenty of chicken. So it's nice to meet all of you. I'd like each of you to introduce yourself and just briefly, your name and your role. I would love for you to pick one item from my list on this particular slide that is a challenge in your organization. We'll just go first. Jay Stanley, you're the first on my Google visualization here. So I'll let you go first, and we'll just go around the horn.
Okie dokie. Get the salad out of my teeth. This is Jay Stanley. I'm with Heartland Food Products Group. We make our flagship product is Splenda. So we make sweeteners, and we do coffee products and other things like that. And we're based in Indianapolis, Indiana. Let's see.
Great.
What are the challenges? Data challenge, I think, honestly, is getting buy-in through the business up to the top. That's been my biggest challenge so far.
Yeah, makes sense. Brian, you want to go next? Brian Noble.
Oh, there we go. Got off mute. Brian Noble from Albany International. Probably the biggest thing is just shifting that culture of dump out of SAP and analyze in Excel to no longer having to dump data out of SAP.
Absolutely. Brian Toulis.
Yep. Hey guys, I work with Brian Noble, so I'd second that, and I guess I'd say that's an example of B. That's how we've always done it. We're in the middle of some projects now to kind of look at what we've wrought in our BI landscape and trying to provide some sense and order to things. So that's one near and dear to my heart.
Brian White.
Hi, Brian White with Red Gold. We've a little bit of that's how we've always done it. We've got some tools in place that we've had for a long time, and it's getting to the point where we need to potentially look at some opportunities and figure out how to make folks more efficient.
Makes sense. Heather.
Yeah, I'm at Nielsen Massey Vanillas. I think our biggest challenge right now is, I'm just looking at your list here, getting the folks in the system to use it. I think is the biggest challenge for us right now.
Understand. Well, Jeff Young, you've already introduced yourself, so Jessa.
Hey guys, I'm Jessa. I'm from Minnesota area. I work for USLBM, which is a lumber and building materials distributor. Since we are in the space of buying up multiple companies, we run into the issue of difficulty combining data across multiple ERP systems. So that's kind of our biggest challenge at the moment.
Makes sense. Julie. Oh, there's
Sorry,
two Julies on
had
the
to
call.
find the
I'm
correct-
not doing that. I should be more specific. But Julie, since you ran over to your computer, I'll let you talk first, and then Julie Grimm, you can go.
I am Julie. I'm from the Confer Group. I am not a CIO.
Perfect. No
Okay.
problem. Julie Grimm.
Okay, I'm Julie Grimm and I'm with Star Cutter Company. We are precision cutting tool manufacturing and we are headquartered out of Farmington Hills, Michigan, which is metropolitan Detroit area. I would say that kind of a toss-up between the hard to get my team comfortable with the analytics tool, but not so much that they just want to use Excel. It's just really getting used to how this can work for me and building the bench depth of who can help analyze the data and build the Power BIs to be able to analyze the data.
That makes sense. Randy? Oh, maybe Randy stepped away. Rick, you want to? I think we have Rick and Sean.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay. Rick Schibler, VP of IT for Kentucky Trailer. Obviously, by the name, we manufacture and service all types of trailer and truck body products out of Louisville, Kentucky. Though we have divisions all over the U.S. and also in Europe. I guess one of the things that as a pain point that I'm also trying to get the organization to do is really, instead of focusing on lag measures, reporting that's, as you're going through and trying to achieve your objectives, a lot of the times there's nothing you can do about it if it's just strictly focused on the lag measures. And we really want to focus on the lead measures so they have the data in their hands and time to actually make changes before it actually becomes a problem. That's one of my biggest challenges that I'm trying to work with the organization and doing that, and also getting them to use it effectively in concurrence with that objective.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Sean?
Hi, Sean Turgeon with the Confer Group as well. I'm here to observe and help make sure everybody gets good follow-up after this.
For sure. And Steve Brown, you want to clean up here?
Yes, I'm Steve Brown. I'm with ECMD. We're a supplier to several of Jess's constituent companies, and our challenge is very similar to a lot of y'all. That's the way we've always done it. Getting them comfortable with the tools that we have, getting better usage of the tool utilizations of the tools that we have, and the bench strength on going from this is the business problem that we want to solve to how do you answer that question? In other words, we've got the data in almost all cases, we've got the data, but how do you answer that question given that set of data? So that's the data analyst role is what, like most mid-sized companies, we probably could use a few more of those or create a few more is more likely the answer. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, David, we had Bill join as well since
you started. Bill, you can go next.
Oh, guys, I'm with the Golf Warehouse, and I'm just kind of chiming in here to see what else we can learn and find out more ways to use our data to try to make a profit with it.
Absolutely. Well, glad to have everyone chime in today. And so several times throughout my talk today, I'd love everyone to unmute and chime in a few times. That would make this, I would love to be interrupted, and I'll also prompt you periodically. But again, we're Solve, and we've had the privilege to work with a few of you. But we also, we've worked with several hundred customers at any one given time. We're around 30 folks, and we have 4 locations in the US. And so in our work, we use 2 primary software solutions. One's from Microsoft. We've been longtime Microsoft partners, and we've also worked extensively with Qlik. We also are, working in Tableau. So I think Greg's talk last time was, those are the Gartner leaders. This topic of data literacy is near and dear to my heart. I'm a former teacher, and I had the opportunity to teach, real literacy. And so I definitely think that there are some, problems. We'll be talking about those. And my goal today is that everyone leaves with, something that they might be able to, perhaps be inspired to do in their own organizations to move you from where you are now to where you'd like to be with data literacy. I will be talking about both some free resources to promote literacy as well as some paid ones here at the end of my talk. But it's really great to be with you. So data is everywhere. I think all of our, this is a mid-market group, and so all of our companies have multiple source systems. And so we have no shortage of data. And I think we'd like to assume that everyone working for us knows what to do with that data. That the average employee that's working in our firms knows how to handle data and make decisions. We want to be data driven. That's the buzzword. I like this Dilbert cartoon. I see in my role, people committing errors with data all the time. So it could be something like averaging averages, or people who have their favorite visualization, and to them, every business problem is one visualization type, the pie chart. I need a historical trend. I need a pie chart. Of course that's silly. And so because I get to go into lots of different organizations, I think I have a little bit unique perspective. And I noticed some attitudes toward data. And one helpful attitude I find with data right now is that we are all pretty empowered in our personal lives with data. So increasingly, even my mother, who I love dearly, she is a pretty fair hand at navigating her own data. But then I do meet people that are on the left-hand side of this PowerPoint, and they at the bottom, and they say, hey, you shouldn't expect us to know data because we're just chicken guys, or we're just oil and gas guys, or we're just shop floor guys, and so we should get a pass. And I think that perspective is waning. I think by and large, our businesses, people are saying, yeah, that's not, I should expect to use data in my role. I do have some clients, and they are what I would call data kings. I work for a genetics firm, and they hire geneticists. And those geneticists all have prestigious degrees. And there's a paradigm in that organization that, the geneticists will make all the data decisions. And the run-of-the-mill employee, we shouldn't expect them to do that, because that's the geneticist's role, and they like to closely hold on to that role. And I think that's a mistake. I think, again, that's not as something I see it as often. And then what I do see that I think is really helpful is that by and large, our organizations are making data available to all. They're not putting barriers around it, and I think that's a really good thing. And so I think the question that many of us have is, especially those of us who are CIOs, is how do we get more people doing smart stuff with data in our business? And so on the left-hand side, when I worked in industry, this is definitely the model that I worked in. There were analytics pros, and several times a year, they'd do some helpful stuff for the business. Here's some new reports, here's a dashboard. But I think increasingly on the right is what we're seeing. And that's where there's still analytics pros, but by and large, they are supporting people in our business who not only know business, but they know how to use data. And so this idea of promoting the citizen analytics professional is something that I'm seeing more and more. And I think that's very helpful. I think self-service is a buzzword, and in an upcoming talk that we're going to do for the Confer group, if you'd like to attend, we're going to talk a lot more about self-service. But I think this is a better paradigm over here on the right. I also think that we have to be careful about who we're hiring in IT, and I know I'm speaking to a group of CIOs. Are we hiring people to whom a business person with a hard-hitting business problem is likely to feel comfortable bringing it to us? Or are we Batman? I work alone. I think that's an unhelpful type of person, and we certainly don't want to be perceived that way to our business customers. I think in some organizations there is a risk when a person who might be insecure in how confidently they use data, when they do that for the first time, they're kind of insecure about it, and we need to make sure they're really comfortable, working collaboratively with other people at that point. And so I think this is a good list of challenges for enterprise leaders related to adoption. You can see literacy there in the center. And some of you have even talked about some of these items as we are at the top of the call. I'd love to, I think there is definitely, we're going to talk about data governance a little bit later. Setting a vision. I have a number of our customers today at Solve that are telling us, yes, our business is oil and gas, just as an example, but we're a data company. Yes, our business is selling toys, but we're a data company. And so I like hearing that. I think people are recognizing that data is so strategic that we have to get good at it in order to be good at whatever it is that we do. And so I think that's a really positive trend. So before we go on, I think these are some good questions that relate to maybe how data literacy might be important in your organization. And I just want to zero in on number 3 there. Do executives at your organization make decisions based on gut feel? Or do they use data to make those decisions? Is data being used? And I just love for maybe a person or two to unmute themselves and how do you see this playing out? Do you think folks are used to operating from that gut feel place, or do you see people increasingly using numbers to support their positions?
I definitely have seen it with our users, and especially our business leaders, is that they've got the gut feel, and they've been doing that, but there's a sense now that time is running out for that, and the data has to truly support it. And if we're still doing things by gut feel, that we really need to get to data-based decision making in those areas that are gray. There's almost a sense of urgency with it.
Yeah, I like that. Where I am, oftentimes the companies that surround me are taking their analysis to Walmart and trying to convince them that they ought to carry product X or product Y. And those are very, you don't dare come unprepared to those meetings because you're going to have to prove in data that you're going to, help Walmart out. So there's some external pressure can actually be helpful sometimes.
I would add that I agree with Bill that tradition has been to go with gut feel because maybe the data wasn't necessarily easily available. And as we try to make it more and more available, they're trying to embrace the idea of making the decision with gut feel, or not with gut feel, but with the data. Excuse me. The difficulty is it's not the trusting of data, but it's the obsession of who's governing the data, making sure it's perfect, which we all know because humans are involved, there's going to be error in what's entered into a system. But it has to be perfect, and making sure it's strict as to who can get what and where, and so that just complicates everything. So.
Yeah. I appreciate everyone sharing today. I'm gonna go on, but I'll pause in a moment and we'll talk a little more about some of those things. I think this we'll define data literacy next, but I like this continuum. You've probably seen a flavor of this. We'd all like our organizations to get more mature in using data, and most are on the left. They're in that descriptive state. So I think one of the gentlemen at the top of the call said, hey, look, we're only looking in the rearview mirror. We want to do more going forward. I think literacy is one thing that really, a lack of confidence in using data is one of the things that impedes us from going up this continuum. So we'll talk about that going forward here. I like this definition. So the ability to read, work with, analyze, and argue with data. And my favorite part of this definition is the last. If you're going to argue with data, you are going to be pretty darn confident. And if you just think on the national, not even in your company, but there's been a lot of narrative around arguing with data in this country in the last 2 years because of the pandemic. And some of that analysis, you've probably seen analysis and thought to yourself, oh my, that person's not sharing data in a very helpful way. There's all kinds of different conclusions we can draw from that. And I think getting good at arguing with data is a key skill. So there's this idea that we've got to upskill our organizations. On this particular stat, only 17% of companies are actually actively encouraging their employees to be more confident with data. And I've observed that. Not many are doing much to help. There's a broad assumptions that if we provide good data in Power BI or Qlik or Tableau or what have you, our folks are going to be productively using that data. And I think that's not always the case. I like this statistic, and there's a bunch here, but just for time's sake, look at the third one down on the left. 78% of decision makers said that they'd be willing to invest more time into improving data skill sets. I think that's a wonderful stat. It speaks to that our organizations would be willing, if we extended the effort, to work on their own skills. And I think that's true. I hope you would. And then according to this study, 3 to 5% greater enterprise value for people who are, who score, organizations that score highly in data literacy. If you want to pay about $10,000 to Qlik, they have an assessment. I'm here to be tool agnostic today, but I actually do like work Qlik has done in this space because they've done it in a Qlik agnostic way, which I think is impressive. But they will assess your organization and provide findings comparing your organization to your peers in industry. They do that in 3 categories. One is sort of the human capital, who you're hiring and training. One, how much data-driven, the pink is how much data-driven decision-making is actually happening in your organization. And then how broadly is it happening in your organization, the last category. So whether you take the survey or not is immaterial. I think these are great things to consider about your organization. How broadly are things like that happening? So these are some objectives that we see commonly when it comes to data literacy. That common foundation, the language that should permeate our organization, and of course, actually using the data in our business. And so I'm planning to provide a snapshot of that. I think all of our organizations have these types of data personas in your organization. So I want to invite you to consider them. On the left is the data aristocrat. Typically organizations don't have too many of these, but you probably have a few. If you're at all at size, this may be a person who is just a pro using data. Maybe they have a natural gifting in it. The data knight is someone who's maybe more young in their career, but who has a lot of aptitude for data. Maybe you're noticing that they seem to more naturally use information in their role better than others. The data dreamer, we typically have a lot of people like this. They're not great at data now, but they're noticing that other people are, and they know that'd be good for them. And then you may even have a few data doubters in your organization, and these folks are the ones who may resist you a little bit. They like making decisions by the seat of their pants. It's worked for them. It should continue to work for them. So I think with the data aristocrat, and we'll talk in a moment about how you can identify who these people are, we want to harness those people so that they don't, keep all the data goodies for themselves, but they see themselves as mentors where possible. And so they probably have that strong skill set. A data knight, these are, I have one of these in my organizations. I have several, but in my company, we've hired a data knight, and I didn't know he was a data knight when I hired him. He was an intern, but he really has a strong aptitude to use analytical skills, and it's been fun to watch. And you may have folks like this. They are gonna, you want them to work to provide the analytics to the rest of the organization through their role. And then this is where there's a lot of work to be done. We need to pour the Kool-Aid for these folks who are just getting started using data. I think we're assuming they're already good at data, and it's not true. And then with our doubters, we have to, help them grow in their data literacy. At least if they don't want to make decisions with data, at least help them to validate the seat of the pants decisions with some data. And so I'll pause there for a moment. Of those 4 personas, about how many aristocrats and knights would you say are in your organization? I'd like to have just a few of you unmute. About how many aristocrats and knights, if you added them up, how many would be in your organization, would you swag, across all the departments?
I probably have a couple of the aristocrats and really a very small number of knights and a lot of dreamers and probably it's almost like a bell curve. With the exception of the knight, I don't see that we've got as many knights as I like, but a lot of people are in that dreamer category. Yeah. And then doubters, there's probably as many doubters as I have aristocrats.
I understand. Anybody else?
Hey, it's Brian at Albany. Brian Tullis. I think we probably have folks who think they are data knights, and the swords and shields that they carry maybe aren't quite as I don't know. They're not doing what they think they do. And that gets back to the comment I made earlier about people having, we have certain habits and ways of working that when you don't know what good looks like, you can think you are really doing really great things. I don't know, maybe that makes them dreamers rather than knights, but maybe I have dreamers that think they are knights.
Yeah. That's where some education will really help those people understand that there may be a different way if they're open to it. I appreciate that. I'm gonna go on for time's sake here, but I think I like that definition: read, work with, analyze, and argue with data. And so I want to share some specific strategies that I've seen. So as Solve, we get to go into a lot of different organizations and see people doing smart things that promote data literacy. And so I want to share some of those in these categories. We'll start out with reading data. This is the foundation. So those data dreamers, they need help here. I'm speaking to IT professionals today, and I know documentation is a curse word in your organizations, but we have got to do it. Data literacy is key. It relies on things like data dictionaries. And so if there are key performance indicators that are crucial to your organization, they need to be published in a place that's easy to find. And so I see organizations doing this well, and it really does help onboard new people. So for example, if there is a key ratio in your business that really helps you decide if you're doing well or not, that's a good thing for your team to understand. And so, putting them on your corporate intranet is a good idea. One of our clients is Trinity Industries. They are in rail cars, and a practice that I admire about them is they'll have explainer sessions for their whole team based on in groups based on their corporate financials. And so they don't make the assumption that all those large numbers, they're a public company, so there's lots of numbers in their earnings reports, and they don't make the assumption that everyone understands those. They have explainer sessions to help people understand what's actually driving their business. And I admired that. I thought that was a great idea. And that has really helped their team know what's important. Let's move on to working with data. I think we'd all like to, we work really hard and we spend a lot of money doing business intelligence. And this is where those data dreamers and maybe some of those knights are engaging that data, trying to do things with analytics. One of our CIOs from our clients is from a company by the name of Sunstar. And Sunstar has produced video vignettes, little short videos that show a user accomplishing some common analytics tasks. And those are published out to the corporate intranet. And so as people are trying out, hey, how do I go find out what a customer has purchased and what their buying patterns have been? That is a video vignette you can find. And the rule that he has said to his own staff is, unless they've watched the video, they shouldn't ask for help. And of course, that they help their staff, but they really encourage use of those videos, and I thought that was creative. We've seen that be helpful. The other thing that's important here is to promote self-service. All those platforms that I mentioned at the top, Tableau, Qlik, Power BI, they're styled self-service analytics solutions, and they have differences that Greg talked about last time. But it's key that we as IT organizations provide an environment where you can do something new with analytics without having to always wait in line for IT to do it. And so creating standardized master measures. So for example, we shouldn't be arguing about how to calculate margin in our organization. That should be defined, and it should be a master measure that I can just use as a business customer of the data and not have to think really hard about that. Something that's helpful in working in BI is artifacts like this. This is a dashboard, and I'm showing a Qlik example. So if any of you use Qlik, I'll be happy to send this to you. But this dashboard is intended to show example visualizations that accomplish different tasks. And so you can go through and just look at different ways to compare information. And when you're beginning your self-service journey as a data knight, this kind of deliverable might be really handy. When I want to correlate two numbers, what visualization types might I pick? These are some good examples that kind of prevent the I always use a pie chart paradigm. One of my favorite parts about this dashboard is visualization pitfalls that are listed here. So these are pitfalls. So for example, if I look at these three salespeople right here, I might conclude that Bob is really a poor salesperson. When in fact, if I had structured my analytics properly, I could see that Bob is, third amongst our salesperson, and he actually has done a pretty good job compared to all of these others. And so I think sometimes things like this just help a user be proficient in analytics. I'm going to send this deck out to you at the end of the call, but there is a webinar that Solve did where we're talking about choosing the best visualizations for your business use case. So if anybody on your team would benefit from that, you're welcome to have them look at that recording. Again, helping your users use data is critical. Let's talk about analyzing data. Analyzing data is where we're looking for new opportunities. So this is no longer just looking in the rearview mirror, but actually using our data to do something brand new. And I've got a couple examples here. Magellan Midstream Partners is a company in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they have what they call Analytics Genius Bar hours. And so their super smart analytics pros in their IT department make themselves available to business folks, just anybody who wants to come, on a regular basis and at published times. And so sometimes those can be very technical sessions where, hey, I can't get my KPI to be right on this graph, to, hey, where can I find the data to support my business use case? And so we've seen that really help adoption at that company and help people, actually do smart stuff with data. Dayspring Cards is a division of Hallmark. They make greeting cards, and they have business analysts that are going out to business departments and meeting over the BI technology and leading sessions where they accomplish tasks together. And so they really have been helpful in bringing new people along and also helping them. So for example, right now I was just speaking to the CIO there, and they are working on helping their business create recommendations about what their customers ought to buy. The role of the business analyst is really key, and especially a business analyst engaging the business. And then I think my favorite, arguing with, this is kind of the pinnacle where we're maybe even using some of those high-tech ways of using data. But really, I think a lot of this is about using data to make business cases. Highline Aftermarket is a auto parts distributor, and they have provided to their salespeople dashboards that are designed to be used in customer presentations. And so they've really thought a lot about what is the story they want to tell each customer, and they're using data for that. And I have seen this be best done, these sort of more advanced concepts in small groups. I think especially when people are maybe a little insecure in the technologies, it really helps when you have a group of peers that you can organize. But combining data together, AltoSham is they make ovens, and buying products is a big problem right now because of the supply chain disruption. And so they have really had to work on how are we going to use our data to determine the right reorder points for all of our products so that we can be in stock when our customers want to buy. So some stories about promoting data literacy there. So let's talk about governance a little bit. So I think this is not about, I think sometimes when governance comes up, then CIOs automatically say, ooh, show me your master data management tool. And this is not a software discussion. I'd love to have a master data management conversation with any of you, but I think we can encourage literacy by how we govern the use of analytics in our organizations. And so I want to talk about some helpful paradigms that we've seen about how companies can set up their analytics environments to promote literacy. One is executive sponsorship is absolutely key. I have seen so much mileage in business departments when the leader in a group meeting setting brings up an analytics dashboard and says, let's talk about this trend right here. And suddenly everybody is looking at that trend and seeing how much the leader values data. And also people are learning how to interpret data through the leader's lens. So any kind of encouragement you can bring to your executives in your organizations to promote BI is very helpful to literacy. I have seen a lot of leaders in the organization being formed into a steering committee. And so in a minute, we're going to talk about some literacy programs you could consider implementing. Having a steering committee is really going to help. It provide that oomph to get it done. And then our super smart folks in our IT departments who do analytics, we want them to really be structuring the raw data. That is really outside of the realm of the purview of the average business customer for analytics in your organizations. They need us to do that. So that's where I think a key role for IT is there. But then in every department shown on by these little dashed lines here, there are two roles that I think are very key for literacy. One is the data steward. And so this is not a techie. This is a business leader who says, these are the KPIs that are important for our department. That's an important role because I think sometimes we have dashboards that are full of numbers and we don't know which ones are the right ones to look at. And so there's a lot of people not knowing where to look. But then data analysts within the department that play a role in creating new analysis for their department. This is a key role. So to the extent that you can grow and train these people, these are like the data knights. You want them to grow up and really contribute into the analytics used in their departments. That should be a goal. So I think with these personas, we have a goal that they're going to grow into more than they are. So if they're currently skeptical, we want them to have a willingness to use data to validate their intuition, and so on and so forth as we go through these roles. And so what are some things you can do to raise the game with data literacy if you should desire to do that in your organization? And I think the first resource I want to point you to is this resource from a multidisciplinary group here. You can see the vendors at the bottom. I will say, and I want to, this is a talk that's not about technology. The CLIC involvement in this project is non-CLIC specific. So it's about data literacy and using data. So don't think because you see CLIC here that everything I see here is going to be CLIC. It's not. But this is a multidisciplinary group at this website URL. I'll send this PowerPoint deck out to everybody. And it has access to strategies and tools to grow literacy. And so I encourage you to visit this website. When you're there, you can take an assessment that you could consider doing with your team. This assessment's free, and it will help identify your aristocrats, your knights, your dreamers, and your doubters. And so it's a short, doesn't take a lot of time. And one thing it will do is recommend some things that would help any given individual go to the next level with data literacy. And again, we're not talking about being better with Power BI or Qlik or Tableau. We're talking about using and interpreting and relying on data in literacy. And then as part of this, one thing that Qlik has done is they have some online classes, and some of them are paid. So there are some, very interesting classes. I've taken a few of these because we're Qlik partners here. But for example, there are some for the aristocrats in your audience. There are some things that they may be very interested in. But there are also some things that are more a fit for the everyman analytics user, if that makes sense. And those are free. So the red outlines are free courses. They're not long. And these would be wonderful things for folks on your team who want to grow in literacy to promote and use. And so these are some great free resources that are out there. If you have folks on your team who are really excited about analytics and you want to grow their analytics, there are even certifications they can earn through this process in data literacy. And those, again, all of this is totally tool agnostic, not only a Qlik thing. If you are interested in having a large group of folks from your team do a data literacy focused workshop in your organization, that is available from Qlik as and the cost varies a little bit, but it's around $15,000. And what this is, it's a 12-week total workshop that can be a fit for up to 50 participants. And what it is a blend of instructor-led sessions, so a real human instructor doing some things that you pick, with the online classes that I was just showing you. And so if you pay that money, then all the classes are available to your team, along with some external resources here. And so if you're interested in learning about that kind of program, you can find it here. Again, no pressure to pay the money and do that. I think there are some nice free resources here, so you could do some of this on your own, but they will actually facilitate that program if you should be interested in that. These are some of the workshop topics that you can have a real live instructor work with your team. I like some things on this because I find users in companies we serve tend to be a little weak on things like forecasting. There are some industries we work in where data ethics is actually a pretty important thing to think about. How I like this one about using data for a framework for using data to make decisions. So if you were to pay for some of the instructor-led workshops, I think there's some good ones out there. This is the format of those workshops. Again, if you are interested in doing that, the idea is that everyone attends some of the instructor-led sessions, but everyone kind of has their own learning plan. So if you're a data aristocrat, you may not need the starting out with data session. You may be more interested in the how do I use regression analysis in my business session. But there's a little something for everything for everyone in these 12-week programs. So if this would strike your fancy, why I'd be happy for you to speak with us about it. But in the meantime, I just wanted to make you aware of some nice resources here for enrichment for your team that you could consider. So with that, I just want to pause and open up the floor a little bit. You know, we've got a few more minutes here. I'd like to, you know, what do you think is either helping the cause of literacy in your organization or maybe holding it back from your perspective right now?
I just, this Steve Brown, DCMD, I just going to say, I think the kind of data literacy course or training or offering that you're talking about there is an excellent idea, because that's been one of the things holding us back is you know, other than sending them back to get a statistics degree, what's the best way to get them, grow them into the next level up in that data usage hierarchy?
Well, exactly. No one has time to go back to, you know, get a master's degree, right? We just need everyone to grow in their role where they are right now.
Right, exactly. And that's been our challenge is other than that kind of thing, which is obviously prohibitive, then how do we grow them up? So that's excellent idea.
You know, David, one of the things that I always strive to do, and you mentioned the intranet idea, that it's very important that when you do have the data nights that are in your organization, that you can create visibility so that others can see what these data nights have developed and how they help them. And so many times these things are done in silos in different groups, and it doesn't move from accounting to marketing to production control, if you will. And to make sure you've set up a communications process in order to share the best of the best, and at the same time, of course, maintain the integrity of your data and make sure you've done all your data governance and compliance you need to do to protect, but at the same time share. So I think that's important, the sharing.
I agree. Sure.
This is Jessa from USLBM. I just wanted to kind of point out one of the struggles that I feel like we've faced a few times is getting the organization into a place like, and when I say organization, I mean specific to the BI team and all of the analysts that are involved in that, you know, sharing the analyst responsibilities out into the business, creating that power user, the nights, you know, however you want to describe that. But then also, you know, distinguishing those responsibilities throughout the organization and how that, you know, melds with the actual BI group and where that BI group sits. So we've kind of played around with putting the BI group in the business, actually. And then we're a little disconnected from the IT processes. So I'm just curious to know whatever others' thoughts are on org structure.
So Jessa, I have a client right now, and what they do is IT, the business analysts report each one to a different business head. And so they automatically care a lot about what happens in those business departments because of that. Then they have a dotted line to IT. And so that's one approach I've seen work that I like.
Cool.
And in our organization, where we've sort of made that dividing line is it's IT's responsibility to clean the data and educate people on the definitions of the data and measures and proper measures. And then that's sort of where the dividing line becomes on that. The visualizations and analysis of the data is better done in the business, if at all possible. I mean, I can certainly, thinking about some of Jessa's constituent organizations, that it may be a case where for some of those constituents, IT or corporate would be better to provide a resource there to be the business analyst, simply because of the vacuum and where those resources and skills are. Just thinking for her specific situation. But in a perfect world, that David structure is what you ought to strive for.
Yeah. Rick, you started to say something?
Yeah, I had a little funny story that I wanted to throw by you. I'm just curious what other people do. It's like we have in a prior life when I had done a BI implementation in another company, manufacturing company, and some of our KPIs were real time, based on real time access to the data. And actually one day, and this actually happened, and what was shocking was the result of what happened. But anyway, one day I had a slew of calls from upper management because one of our KPIs that shows the actual, the budget versus the forecast versus the actual for bookings, right? And one day the bookings in this one area just jumped through the roof. And we were using the ClickView product at the time, which has drill down capabilities to see down to the order to see what's going on. But when they first saw that, I was amazed at how many executives and how many people actually called IT and said the tool's wrong. What happened was a customer service rep had actually keyed in the part number in the quantity field by accident, by giving access to the real-time data. So that goes to your data literacy thing of making sure that you go to the owners of the data first, or even had the ability to do a self-service to look at that. I was stunned how many people actually called IT to say, fix the tool because the tool's broke, when it was actually a person in customer service that actually had caused the issue. So real life story.
Like that one. Maybe it's so that they trusted your dashboards a lot, though.
They did, and they relied on them to drive the business to the point where when something didn't look right, they immediately thought that they couldn't trust it, but B, nobody really wanted to do the research, at that level that I would expect the data owners to validate what was actually happening instead of blaming the tool.
Right.
So,
Brian, you started to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I wanted to throw out a challenge to the other IT leaders out there is to take a look at how we use data inside of our own business processes, and maybe lead by example. We had a situation last year where when we sent everybody home, we kind of knew how many remote workers we had based on VPN logs. We didn't know where they were. We didn't, so we had to get 3 or 4 sources of data together in Power BI because SolarWinds didn't tell us what we needed to know. Right. And so, we've tried to use that as a bit of an example for our own, for our own selves as the Microsoft guys invented the term, eat our own dog food, go use our tools to solve our problems that we have in IT. And don't think of these tools just as quote unquote business tools to go solve business problems, because we've got our own problems to solve too.
I think there are some no man's land areas too, where really the CIO is maybe the only people who can bring forward the business problem. I recently had a customer CIO who realized that customers were having a really poor experience when they called in to a bank. And so this CIO made analytics and went and published them far and wide that proved that their customer service department wasn't so hot. And it was really effective, and they've made some big changes. And he got a lot of good press there.
Yep.
Okay, David, you want to wrap? It's about 2 minutes till, so we want to get everybody on their way here. So we appreciate your time. Go ahead.
Thank you for your time today. We'd love to have a conversation about literacy or anything else related to analytics. We do have some upcoming talks. One will be about central data architecture strategies. That's in February, and then we plan self-service in March. And so we'd love to have everyone back.
Great. And everyone, thank you for attending today. David, thank you for your insights. It's been a great session, and I hope to hear from all of you soon. And in the meantime, stay safe, and we appreciate your support of the Confer Group. Take care. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.